A good friend once told me, and by told me, I mean lovingly and gently roasted me, when they said, Katie, a completely straight person would not watch every single episode of the television show, The L Word. And this friend said this to me right after I had told them that I indeed have seen every single episode of the television show, The L Word. And at the time, I deeply disagreed with my friend who told me this, okay? I love television. I have watched every television show that has ever been considered groundbreaking, okay? I was watching Breaking Bad while it was out. I was watching The Sopranos. I was watching Orange is the New Black when streaming services were starting to make TV for the first time. I love groundbreaking TV that people are talking about. So when The L Word came out, I was like, oh my God, everyone's talking about this show that has all of these incredible stories about queer women. I'm going to watch it because the world's talking about it and I want to be a part of the conversation and I want to know what a day in the life of a lesbian is because I don't know and that seems very interesting to me. And I thought that the whole world was watching the show the same way that I was, okay? So I told my friend over and over again for like years, no, I am straight and I've seen the L Word. Both of those things are true. There's no way. I am not gay. That does not mean just because I've watched the show that I am queer, okay? Well, my friends, fast forward quite a few years and I have been proven wrong because guess what? I am indeed queer. Welcome to the Renaissance Room. I am Katie, your host, boudoir photographer, professional mythbuster, and apparently your friend who's just a little bit more than a little bit gay. Happy Pride, happy June. It seems like it's about time for this episode. So today, in episode 7, I am sharing with you all my own coming out story. All right, so up front, I'll say this is a pretty personal episode, okay? And I may say some things wrong or I may explain something in a way that's different from how you may have experienced queerness or your coming out story or what you know about queerness and coming out. So I will just say this is my personal story so far. I'm out here still figuring stuff out. I am now 36. I didn't fully come out until I was 33. So I am only 3 years into this journey. And there's still a lot I have to learn about myself, about others, about the community, about the culture of queerness. So this is simply my experience about how I figured this out about myself and what my experience has been so far. Let's dig into it, all right? I was not somebody who spent my youth or my teenage years or my first decade of my adulthood really hiding this part of myself. And I do feel sometimes a little bit guilty that I did not have that experience that so many queer people feel when they're that age, right? I did not feel like I was in a closet. I did not feel like I was hiding a part of myself. I apparently was the last person to know that I was queer. I had so many friends who, like my friend at the beginning of this episode, would say things to me about why they thought I was queer. And it was just not anywhere on my fucking radar for many, 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 many years of my life. So when I was young, I was boy crazy, all right? I had like 5 boyfriends before I even graduated high school. I had crushes on men through most of my 20s. And I would like to say right up front at the beginning of this episode that a big part of me still figuring out my sexuality and not having a label yet is that sometimes I feel very confused by the fact that all of those relationships I had with those men were very real. My feelings for them were real. My love for them was real. My attraction to them was real, which is most likely why I'm probably somewhere on the bisexual, pansexual part of the rainbow, because I feel very strongly that I did have true and genuine connections, relationships, love for those men that I was in relationships with most of my life. It feels really important to me to share that because I want them to know if for any reason any of them ever listen to this or chat with somebody who's like, oh my God, did you hear that Katie was gay now? It feels really important for me to let them know in some way, or at least let it be out in the universe that like I loved them. Those were real relationships. Those were true attractions that I had to those people, and that they were meaningful. So I still don't know exactly what box in the LGBTQIA plus world I fit into. Somewhere on the rainbow, we just don't know exactly where, because I'm still working on it. But anyway, back to the boy crazy, right? So it was nowhere on my radar. I did not have a crush on a girl in school. I did not like actively feel like I was hiding this part of myself from my family or my friends. In fact, it was so unclear to me that I was queer. The like celebrity that I had the biggest crush on in my 20s was Chris Pratt. I loved Chris Pratt in Parks and Rec, okay? Like, I thought he was so funny and so talented and so unassuming. And then he got the part in Jurassic World, and I may or may not have gone to see Jurassic World like 3 times in theaters. What? Couldn't be me. Anyway, now Chris Pratt is so problematic, and I'm like literally disgusted. Even if I wasn't queer in some way, I would hate that I had a big crush on him because, bleh, Chris Pratt. But hopefully that just paints a picture for you of how fucking clueless I was that I was queer, because Chris Pratt was like my peak celebrity crush. So I went along in life this way until probably the pandemic. And I know that this has turned into like a cliche. If you are a queer person listening to this who was out before the pandemic, you know a lot of people who came out during the pandemic. And I know you know this is probably a trope of sorts at this point, but I swear to God, I do not think I would have figured this out about myself if it were not for the pandemic and the fact that I downloaded TikTok. Because in the pandemic, right, so I had just gotten married literally 2 days before the pandemic started. And, you know, the first year of the pandemic, I was busy keeping my business afloat. Somewhere in there, I downloaded TikTok. And I made the silly videos with the board in the house, and I'm in the house bored. And, you know, I made the viral recipes, the tomato caprese feta dish, whatever. And I loved all those things. But as the algorithm started to get to know me more, I guess, it started to feed me content that I at first thought was not meant for me. It started to talk a lot about the patriarchy, a lot about gender roles, a lot about sort of like equality in marriages and household work and all these things. And I started to really understand, and this is not, I want to be clear, this sentence is not about one singular person that I've ever been in a long-term relationship with and lived with or been married to. This is not about individuals. But the more I learned about the patriarchy from TikTok in the pandemic, the more I started to realize that by being straight and attracted to men and being in relationships with men my whole life, I was participating in a system that I had to live in the same house as my oppressor, right? And again, this is not about an individual person that I dated and loved and was in a relationship with, because none of them ever made me feel specifically oppressed as an individual. But the system is asking the oppressed to live with their oppressor if they're going to be heterosexual in this society and do the things that society wants us to do. And something about that really got to me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I looked a lot more into the patriarchy and just gender roles and gender norms. And that really started the ball rolling. And then TikTok started sending me more videos that I thought maybe weren't meant for me. Maybe the algorithm had it wrong. But the more queer, lesbian, bisexual videos that started to feed me, the more I was like, why haven't I ever thought of this for myself? I got a lot of videos in my FYP about things like, if you've ever been chatting with your girlfriends about blah, 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 and suddenly the words, God, I really just wish I was gay, but I just am not attracted to women, ever came out of your mouth, then girl, you might want to look in a mirror because you still might be gay. And I was like, I've totally said that, but I didn't really mean it. What does this mean? And again, the FYP just kept feeding me information about compulsory heterosexuality, or comphet, which is the idea that we are all more or less brainwashed when we're born into the idea that it's mandatory to be heterosexual, that that's the way of the world, that if you come out of the womb a boy, you are going to want to be with girls, and if you come out of the womb a girl, you're going to want to be with boys. And compet's very powerful, I have learned. And it's probably one of the biggest things that I experienced in the fact that I didn't come out until I was 33, is that I just didn't realize there was another option on the planet for me because I just thought it was compulsory to be hetero. So I guess you could say these things sort of started to unravel for me a little bit. And I started to remember other friends, like my friend who told me that straight people don't watch the L Word. I've had other friends who've made comments to me over the years. Like, I did have a friend who I used to work with who I had just gotten a new boyfriend at the time, like maybe like 6 weeks prior to meeting this friend at my corporate job. And I remember one night we went out, to a bar like you do in your early 20s every night after work. And I remember her coming up to me, she was queer, coming up to me and saying, Katie, if I'd met you just a few weeks before that new boyfriend of yours, you'd be gay right now. And I did not believe her. I was like, nope, I am super, super straight. And that would never happen in a million years. And that, then I started looking back on it and being like, oh my God, was that friend right too? Could I have been dating women? Is this something that I have within me that I've not let out of its box, right? Like, the more I learned just how wide the spectrum is of sexuality, the more I realized that, yeah, maybe I don't fit in this completely straight box. Maybe I'm somewhere between there and being bisexual. Maybe I'm in between bisexual and pansexual. I started to realize in my later 20s that, like, at parties when people would talk about who your celebrity crush is, this is way after the Chris Pratt thing, by the way, I started answering women, but mostly because I found them like incredibly talented and like want to meet them and like ask them questions and understand why they're so good at what they do. For a while, my number one answer to who's your celebrity crush is Jodie Comer. I don't know if you guys watched Killing Eve, but Jodie Comer is my girl. She is so talented. I like don't understand how so much talent is in one tiny body. And actually, now that I'm talking about it, before that, I think I would have said Tatiana Maslany also, because she is also incredibly talented. Did you guys ever watch Orphan Black? She plays like 19 characters in that show, and every single one of them feels different from the other one, even though it's the same actress. So all of these like puzzle pieces started to come together for me, and I was like, maybe I'm not totally straight. So after I figured all this out about myself, came what might be the hardest part of the whole thing, which is the deconstruction period, right? So I was married. Pretty much the first person I came out to was my husband. We'd just gotten married in the pandemic, right? And then I downloaded fucking TikTok, found out this shit about myself that I might be gay. And, then I had to decide what I wanted for my life. Did I want to explore this part of myself? Did I think I could dampen it now that I knew it existed? What did I want? What did that mean for the people I loved in my life? How is it going to change their lives for me to change mine? And it was scary as fuck. It was really, really scary to not know what was going to come next and to like basically free fall away from the life that you've been building for 33 years that was the life that you thought you wanted, all for the promise of a hunch that you might like dating women. But I just couldn't not try. It felt like a secret I knew about myself that if I only kept it to myself, it was going to grow bigger and I was going to need and want to explore it more. And I knew that it was something I needed to do. It felt like it was the most authentic thing I could do for me. And I only get one life. This is my only bod. This is my only life. This is my only time on this planet in this fucking meat sack. So I said, let's do it. Let's explore it. So I moved into my parents' house. I was sad because even though this is an exciting chapter of like, ooh, I'm going to start dating women. I've never even downloaded a dating app. I'm going to download a dating app for the first time in my whole life because I've been like a serial monogamist. And I'm going to put, boop, interested in women on my little dating app. It's going to be so fun. I'm going to date women. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do in the bedroom? How am I supposed to flirt with a woman? How is she supposed to know that I'm flirting with her and not just telling her I like her top like I do in the bathroom all the time to all the women I see? All of those things were so scary. But I moved into my parents' house. I, did some mourning because I was leaving a life that I had previously wanted, and I didn't know what my new life was going to look like. So I went through a sad phase, as one does when you get divorced. And I was living with my parents, crying a lot, figuring out what I was going to do with my life. And then came New Year's Eve. And my brother was I think he took pity on me. He didn't say this, but I think he probably was like, ugh, Katie, you're sad and divorced. Like, let's go out. So he invited me to a New Year's party, with some of his friends that I have met before because I've been to parties with him and his wife. And so he invited me to this New Year's party in the city. And I was excited because it felt like just, a reason to get dressed up and get out of the house. And I bought this new outfit from Anthropologie. I was so excited to wear it. I was starting to feel my confidence come back, and we drove to my brother's house, and then my brother and my sister-in-law and I were all going to go to the party together from their house. And so my parents were babysitting. And when my parents and I got to my brother's house, I realized that I had forgotten the dress that I just bought. And with that forgetfulness, I also forgot that I was like a confident adult woman. And suddenly I was like, I can't go to this party without this dress. This dress was my security blanket. This new dress was like the way I was going to feel good in this new life that I'm living where I might be dating women. Like, I can't go. I started crying. My brother fed me some shots of whiskey. I was like, I can't go to this party. I need my dress. Somehow my family convinced me to go to this party. But by the time I got there, I was quite intoxicated by the whiskey, right? And I'm having a great time. Again, I know some of my brother's friends. They're all so sweet and so nice. I am at the bar refilling my beverage, and I feel a tap on my shoulder. And this very beautiful woman says, hey, just want to let you know, I really like your outfit. And I play it super cool. And I immediately tell her, oh my God, thank you so much. I'm so sad I'm going through a divorce and I didn't bring my dress with me and I forgot it at my parents' house and I had to wear this and I had to borrow it and it's my sister-in-law's and I don't feel very beautiful in it, but thank you so much for telling me anyway and I don't know where any of it's from because it's not my outfit. And she was locked the fuck in, okay? Like, she probably should have looked around and been like, what is wrong with this woman? And run away. But she did not. We kept chatting. I found out her daughter goes to school with the host of the party's son. And turns out she's also split from her ex-husband. They never got married, but her ex. And she also dates women. And I said, oh my God, tell me everything. And I think this girl's going to be my best friend, okay? I'm like, I don't know any bisexual women who have dated women after men. I need this girl to tell me, what do I do on the dating apps? What do I say to women? I don't understand how to even remotely infiltrate this dating world. Please tell me all the things. And I keep drinking, and the host of the party comes by to be like, oh my God, Katie, Erica, I'm so glad you guys met. And I tell the host, I'm like, oh my God, Erica's my new best friend. Zero idea until after midnight that this woman has been hitting on me all night. I had no idea. I thought she was just going to be my bestie who was going to teach me how to be a bi bitch, okay? And suddenly I started to get like the tinklies at this party and I'm like, oh my God, she's hitting on me. What? And it was very clear that she was hitting on me by the time we were sitting on the couch after midnight. And she started showing me all her tattoos and getting a little bit closer. And then she decides to be the like hottest, most confident human on the planet and says to my brother as the party's winding down and leaving, and she had asked me if I wanted to come over. And I sort of was like, oh my God, but I'm staying at my brother's and my parents, blah, 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 blah. So Erica goes up to my brother and says, hey, I'm taking your sister home with me tonight if that's cool with you. And I was like, oh my God. I did indeed go to Erica's house that night. She has a hot tub. Would you have said no? I don't think so. So that is the beginning of my very, very first and only relationship with a woman in a very lesbian fashion. I just never stopped going over to Erica's house. And now we've been dating for 2.5 years. So that is my cute little meet cute story and the story of how I dipped like a toenail into the dating pool of women loving women. But either way, I think sort of the lesson in here was that I gave myself a chance, I gave myself a chance by leaving the relationship that wasn't going to allow for me to explore this part of myself. I gave myself a chance by going to that party, even though I forgot the dress that I wanted to wear. And I'm still giving myself a chance right now to figure out what is my sexuality. I'm with a woman, but do I still sometimes have attraction to boys? Am I still attracted to non-binary or trans folks? I'm still figuring it out. And I love getting to go to queer spaces. It's been my favorite part of this coming out experience for me. The very first time I was in a room with like almost all queer folks was I went to a G-Flip concert pretty early on in my relationship with Erica. And if you don't know who G-Flip is, then you obviously did not watch Off Campus, because G-Flip has been blowing up lately for their song Bed on Fire. But all of G's albums from before that album are arguably even better than the most recent album, so you should go listen to them. But they are a non-binary queer Australian drummer and artist, and they came to Boston. And as soon as I walked into the concert venue, I was like, oh my God, everyone here is gay. It was overwhelming the first time because it was just like so much newness. But I also felt like safe and seen and able to be myself. And, I can make out with my girlfriend in public and not worry. It's a beautiful thing to be in an all queer safe space. And the more queer spaces I go to, the more I learn about not only my sexuality, but the fact that gender identity, gender expression, and sexuality are 3 different things. Like, I think I just thought they were all the same thing before I came out. Like, part of the reason it took me so long to come out was that I didn't see girls or young women or teenagers that looked like me who were gay. I thought that if you were gay, then you had to look like, I don't know, Ellen DeGeneres, or you had to be a tomboy. And I never wanted to look like that. I always wanted to look like me. I wanted to be femme. I wanted to have cute hair. I wanted to wear makeup. I wanted to wear pink, right? I thought that all of those things many moons ago meant that there's no way I could be gay. And that's because I didn't really know that sexuality was different than gender expression, which is also different than gender identity. So I learn so much every time I go into a new queer space. I learn about myself. I learn about other people's experiences. It's like I get to live in a real life L word and learn about all kinds of different queer experiences in the world every time I go to a pride parade or a gay bar or P-Town over Memorial Day weekend. So I'm so grateful that I'm still learning about myself and about others and about my community. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned while figuring this out is that your identity doesn't have to be a destination. It's okay if it's still a journey. So while I'm figuring out still if I'm bi or pan, I'm really trying to give myself permission to let this be a part of the journey and not chase the destination. Because whatever my identity is on any given day, whether it's in between bi and pan or in between bi and lesbian, it's valid, no matter where it is on the whole big old rainbow. Okay, so as I said, that is my story. That might not be your story. That might not be your bestie's story. That might not be your sister's story or your mom's story or anybody else who's queer that you know. It might not be their story, but it sure is mine. And I'm filming this episode during Pride Month because it feels really important that there might be someone else out there who is listening who is in a different phase than I am right now. There might be someone out there who is in their TikTok phase where they're seeing these TikToks for the first time, and maybe they're married to a man and maybe they're like, oh, maybe I'm a little bit gay. Or maybe they are a teenager who thinks that in order to be gay, you have to want to look a certain way, to have a certain gender expression. And maybe that person finds this podcast and they learn that they can still be a femme and still like girls, and that representation matters. I just felt really called to share this story, even though it's incomplete. And like I said, sexuality doesn't have to be a destination. It can just be a direction. We can just go towards the direction we think that we want to go towards. And if this podcast episode helps anybody get closer to the direction that they're going, even if it doesn't help them get to their destination of bisexuality or pansexuality or lesbian, that's okay with me. I just wanted to share my story in case it helps somebody else figure out theirs. And I'm going to give a little bit of a pep talk that is something that I tell myself in the mirror often as a pretty late in life, late blooming queer person. But just because you were late to the party doesn't mean that you were wrong. And not knowing this thing about yourself for a long time doesn't mean that you are lying to yourself or to anyone else. And you don't need a clear and clean label about who you are, who you're attracted to, and what you want your life to look like right now. It's okay to be in the middle of becoming, because I certainly am. At the end of the day, this still really connects to boudoir and the Renaissance room, because being in the Renaissance room is its own kind of becoming. Becoming a confident version of yourself. Becoming a version of yourself that you love. Becoming a stronger version of yourself. Becoming a version of yourself that can do fucking anything because you showed up to a photo shoot naked. So we're all really just becoming ourselves. Learning, growing, failing, trying again, and becoming the most authentic version of ourselves that we can possibly be. And it's funny because it's kind of also the reason and the thing about this podcast, right? Like, I don't know where it's going. This podcast is still becoming too. I tried some new things today. I'm holding the microphone instead of putting it on a mic stand. I'm using a different camera than I did the first couple episodes. And I'm just here trying to become the most authentic version of me live in front of you all. And I'm hoping that it helps to some extent. So happy Pride, happy June, get out there and celebrate. And I will see you guys for the next episode in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for listening.